I'm Randy Akers, Executive Director of South Carolina Humanities. I'd like to welcome you today to the 29th annual presentation of the Governor's Awards in the Humanities and the third presentation of the Fresh Voices in the Humanities Awards. Established in 1991, the Governor's Awards recognize individuals and organizations whose contributions in the humanities allow us to better understand ourselves, our state, and the world in which we live. We recently introduced the Fresh Voices Awards in the humanities to recognize individuals who are working in unique and innovative ways to use culture and history to bring people together, but whose efforts may have gone relatively unnoticed beyond their own community. Today, we will honor 5 individuals who have made outstanding contributions to the humanities in South Carolina. On behalf of the staff and board of South Carolina Humanities, congratulations and thank you for all you do. Our MC today is Dr. Tom Mack, Chairman of the Board of Directors of South Carolina Humanities. Tom is an author, a distinguished professor emeritus at the University of South Carolina-Aiken, an arts and humanities columnist for the Aiken Standard, a lifetime member of the Board of Governors for the South Carolina Academy of Authors, and a 2014 recipient of the Governor's Award in the Humanities. Our past ceremonies have felt like homecomings. Friends, volunteers, board alumni, project directors, scholars, supporters, and professionals with various organizations come together to celebrate as a community. This year has thrown all of us for a loop, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to highlight the inspiring, engaging, and enriching work of this year's honorees. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the program.
Thank you, Dr. Akers, for that introduction and for your decades of exceptional service on behalf of the public humanities in South Carolina. During a time of crisis, such as the current pandemic, the humanities can play an even more critical role in our lives. The study of history, for example, helps us to connect to the past and discover how earlier generations have weathered their particular storms. Literature links us to other people's stories and reinforces the essential fact that we are not alone. In times like these, the disciplines encompassed by the humanities vibrate with even more meaning. In acknowledgement of this essential fact, we have gathered every year since 1991 to honor those individuals in the Palmetto State who have made the most significant and abiding contributions to the public humanities. Normally, we come together in a large group setting in Columbia to pay tribute to each year's recipients of the Governor's Awards and the Fresh Voices Awards in the Humanities. This year, however, SC Humanities adds this annual awards ceremony to our growing digital repertoire. I wish that we could gather in person to congratulate each and every one of these distinguished honorees, but I know that you will join with me in sending good thoughts their way during this special broadcast. This virtual ceremony would not be possible without the generosity of the following organizations and individuals. honor 4 recipients of the 2020 Governor's Awards and 1 individual selected to receive the Fresh Voices Award in the Humanities. We will begin this program by recognizing this year's recipient of the latter prize. The Fresh Voices in the Humanities Award recognizes individuals who are working in unique ways to bring people together through the deft use of various humanities disciplines. These individuals identify current opportunities by examining the world through a fresh lens, by engaging their communities through open communication, and by creating innovative responses that impact those communities in significant ways. The recipient of the Fresh Voices in the Humanities Award for 2020 is Caroline DeLongshaw. Caroline is a pioneer in our state in the emerging discipline of health humanities, which encompasses the effort to apply the humanities in practical ways to improve the health care of patients. In particular, in her role as manager of patient and family-centered care at the Medical University of South Carolina, DeLongshaw works with various constituencies, clinicians and students, patients and families, to recognize the impact of stories, personal, social, cultural, and political, on individual health and the healthcare system as a whole. Through such initiatives as the Patient Story Workshop and the Patient Story Library, she reminds doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers to put the patient at the center of their practice by adding humanities content to their science-focused curriculum. For her groundbreaking work in the health humanities, Caroline DeLongshaw was awarded an honorary doctorate in humane letters at MUSC just last year. SC Humanities is pleased to add this new honor, the Fresh Voices in Humanities Award, as further recognition that the sciences and humanities can complement one another in preparing more well-rounded professionals in service to the citizens of our state. On behalf of SC Humanities, my heartfelt congratulations go to Caroline DeLongshaw.
Many thanks to Dr. Mack and the South Carolina Humanities for this prestigious award. It is truly humbling, and I am grateful to be recognized for something that brings me so much joy and has become quite an honor to be able to do on a daily basis. Also, many thanks to Lisa Kerr for her incredible nomination. I read her words on paper and will try to live every day to live up to what she has written about me. I felt like I was reading about someone else. Initially, my work was about creating patient and family advisory councils, many of which were already established at the Medical University of South Carolina. And what these are partnerships between our patients, their family members, and our healthcare providers, physicians, nurses, administrators, and other care team members. Once a month, these people come together to talk about how we improve the quality of care at MUSC. We're bringing both the perspectives of our MUSC employees together with the perspectives of those who are actually receiving care in our facilities. We're blending those perspectives to figure out what it is that we can do together. What is the intersection of what we're doing in the hospital and what our patients and families are feeling when they are under our care? It is not a task force, it is not a board that sets policy or creates programs. These are ongoing relationships. We're building trust among these humans in order to work together. And one of the most rewarding things that I've noticed in the wake of this pandemic has been the recognition from some of our leaders to say, you know what, these monthly meetings just aren't enough. And we want to meet with our patient and family advisors every week. We're going to set up a call and call it a virtual happy hour or virtual coffee hour to talk about what it is that they're experiencing. This bi-directional communication with our patients and families is really critical right now because we know we're going to make mistakes. And things are moving so quickly in healthcare right now because of the pandemic that we know that we can course correct much faster if we have our patients and families at the helm with us. And that's exactly what happened. On one of the very first coffee talk hours, we had a mom that attended. She had just come in. She has 3 children. She had just flown into her home from having her daughter COVID tested. Her daughter is special needs and recently had a heart transplant. And with a smile on her face, she said, "May I please tell you about the experience we just had getting Abby COVID tested?" And she shared with us that her daughter had to be held down by 3 nurses, which is not untypical when it comes to our pediatric patients, but that she had to be held down by 3 nurses while mom waited behind a glass wall. She was traumatized. Once the test was completed, she jumped up and flew to the window and was sort of banging on the wall. Mom had a video of this. And again, she shared this with us without any type of anger or judgment. She said, "I completely understand why the COVID test has to be administered this way. When we're doing aerosol generating procedures, this is all about reducing the risk of transmitting this virus to others." She said, "But since I live with Abby, wouldn't it be great if we could reduce the risk for one of the nurses and allow me to wear the appropriate PPE and gown up, and I could be one of those humans holding her down?" And that would reduce the amount of trauma for Abby, because we have to come back in next week and we have to come back in the week after that. And the more we traumatize her today, the harder it's going to be for her to come back in next week. And our leaders heard that, and the policy was changed within 24 hours. We had a new policy the next day where, when it is possible, we will allow a parent or guardian to be present for a COVID test, which was sort of remarkable. And again, that goes back to the course correcting. We know we're going to make mistakes, but if we have our patients and families at the helm with us, we'll be able to do some really great things in a really scary time.
Now we come to the 4 2020 recipients of the Governor's Awards in the Humanities. Since 1991, over 80 individuals and organizations have received this award. Along with past winners, today's recipients are being recognized for a variety of reasons, including their outstanding achievement in humanities research, teaching, and scholarship, their participation in helping communities in South Carolina better understand our cultural heritage, their excellence in defining South Carolina's cultural life to the nation and the world, and their exemplary support for the public humanities programs. The first recipient is someone who has played a significant role in the public life of our state. As the longtime Mayor of Beaufort, South Carolina, first elected in 2008, Billy Keyserling has spearheaded numerous initiatives for his hometown, including efforts in support of environmental protection, youth leadership development, social justice, and education reform. He has also been tireless in his support of the arts and humanities. In 2019, he received the Elizabeth O'Neill Verner Award from the South Carolina Arts Commission for his advocacy of the fine and performing arts. SC Humanities is pleased to acknowledge this year Mayor Keyserling's similarly impressive work on behalf of the public humanities. Creating opportunities for the citizens of our state to learn more about our distinctive history has been one of his longtime goals. Of particular note is Keyserling's work in support of the establishment of our state's newest national park. According to Lawrence Rowland, Distinguished Professor Emeritus at USC Beaufort, Keyserling has been the most diligent, persistent, and effective advocate for the founding in 2019 of the National Reconstruction Era Park and Network. At key sites in and around the city, one can now learn about the important role that Beaufort County played in Reconstruction-era experiments regarding the integration of countless newly freed African Americans into our country's social, political, and economic systems following the Civil War. On behalf of SC Humanities, let me offer my warmest congratulations to Billy Keyserling.
I would like to thank Dr. Tom Mack, Randy Akers, and the whole Humanities family for having given me a home in many ways for the years I was on the board and the many years I've been involved. You know, it's odd that I should get this award to me because several years ago I hosted an event for people in Beaufort to come and learn about South Carolina humanities. And as I stood up there ready to introduce Randy, I said, what is the humanities? Because it's so hard for so many people to get their arms around. And I said, it's sort of where literature and history, architecture, space, culture, museums, it's all where they sort of intersect. If you take all of those and you look at where they cross, sort of like my program in college, which was American Studies, which was similar. But the humanities is sometimes hard for people to get their arms around. But if you think of a historian talking to a musician and creating a piece of music, or someone who's writing a poem, visiting a museum, or talking to an author, it's the wonder of the humanities in that it really is what creates common ground. And it's odd that I've just finished a book that's called Common Ground, because I've spent my career, my whole life really, bringing people together, finding people in rural areas and exposing them to urban areas, taking ideas that are totally foreign to some but are known to others and bringing them together. And the magic of humanities, South Carolina Humanities, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the family of friends that, quite frankly, ought to be a lot larger if people understood who we were and what we do, are so important, and why I have been committed to it, will be committed to it. And I'm honored to get this award today, because if there's one thing we need today, it's coming together. And my book is about coming together and finding common ground, and that's exactly what the humanities does. It's in different disciplines, different people, different places, different ideas, but it's where they all converge and where we find that which is what we share. And so I'm honored to receive this award because it's fitting in a sense, because it's what my career and my future are all about, and that is putting people together.
Our second recipient of the Governor's Award this year is Robin Waits, Executive Director of Historic Columbia. During her 16 years as Executive Director, Waits has moved the organization far beyond its original mission, involving the preservation of historic properties. Indeed, Robin has reached out to a host of community constituencies to meet the larger goal of nurturing, supporting, and protecting the historical and cultural heritage of our capital city. One has only to note such initiatives as the Connecting Communities Through History program, the Columbia African American Archaeological Project, the Columbia Jewish Heritage Initiative, and the South Carolina State House Monuments Project, as evidence of the expanding role Historic Columbia has played and continues to play in developing strategic partnerships in support of the public humanities. In addition to all of these outreach efforts, as John Scher, Historic Columbia's Director of Cultural Resources, spells out in his nominating letter, Robin Waits has been tireless in transforming some of the historic properties for which the organization is the chief steward. Under her leadership, the Man Simons site was transformed in 2014, and the Hampton Preston Mansion in 2018, better to reflect the roles that post-emancipated people of color played in the history of our state. The award-winning reconceptualization of the Woodrow Wilson family home as a museum of the era of Reconstruction was also done under her careful supervision. In the words of John Scher, thanks to the enlightened and inspiring leadership of Robin Waits, Historic Columbia has become a responsible and responsive private nonprofit with an ever-expanding mission. On behalf of SC Humanities, let me offer my heartiest congratulations to Robin Waits.
I am honored to be recognized this year with the South Carolina Governor's Award and want to thank Dr. Tom Mack and SC Humanities for this recognition. Having worked in museums since 1996, I've witnessed and or been party to significant change in the field over the last 25 years. And I'm proud to be at the helm of an organization committed to continuing to lead in these efforts. While this has been a gradual change for us, like many transformative processes, there was for us a pivotal point. In 2006, 2 years after I became the executive director at Historic Columbia, I had the great benefit of working with two engaged, energetic, visionary community leaders, Belinda Gergel and Steve Morrison, on a new strategic plan for the organization. They guided the board and the staff through conversations that moved Historic Columbia literally and figuratively beyond the walls of the historic house museums, whose site stewardship for the city and county long defined us. At that organizational turning point, we established plans for the renovation and restoration of period-appropriate landscapes across 14 acres of grounds that surround each historic building, for the expansion of research and interpretation into historic residential neighborhoods and commercial districts that hold not only character-defining places but multi-generational stories, and the active engagement in grassroots advocacy for the preservation of historic places throughout the community. The ultimate goal was that Historic Columbia would utilize these new tools and offerings to become the leader in all things local history in Columbia and Richland County. This 2006 strategic plan set the stage for transformation for an organization that I'm honored to serve at the helm. Over the last 15 years, we've made major progress towards the goals that we established in 2006. In 2008, we launched the Connecting Communities Through History initiative, which was funded in part by SC Humanities. This community-driven effort documented key aspects of our shared past through the stories of people who lived it. What started with a 6-city center neighborhood project now includes 23 tours of sites connected geographically and thematically, including the African American and Jewish communities, as well as the recently completed exploration of the monuments on the South Carolina State House grounds. In 2014, Historic Columbia opened the first museum of Reconstruction in the country at the Woodrow Wilson family home. So no matter what Billy Keyserling said before or after, we were the first. The circa 1871 former residence stood rehabilitated and re-envisioned as a 21st century museum with a frank and scholarly interpretation of arguably the most formative and yet misunderstood era in our nation's history. In 2019, in partnership with the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, we launched an initiative designed to address the imbalance of representation of women in the public sphere by highlighting the extraordinary work of trailblazers like Dr. Matilda Evans, Chief Justice Jean Toll, Majeska Monte Simpkins, and others. We built a case for broader representation that has the potential to inspire others to action. And ultimately, that is what I feel we have the responsibility to do as public historians. Yes, we are the keepers of some of our community's greatest tangible treasures, but we must acknowledge the inequity of systems in place decades ago when places and objects were deemed important because those systems largely ignored or suppressed key places and stories connected with Black, brown, queer, differently abled, under-resourced people and communities. This is a deficit that it is our responsibility to address now. We have the opportunity to utilize our talents, our research, our ability to check facts, collect and share information in ways that are inclusive, accessible, and serve as a basis for community change. And while much of my career has been dedicated to these efforts, it has never been more critical than it is today. I'm humbled by this recognition from SC Humanities, and of course would not be here without extraordinary support and dedication from the Historic Columbia staff, board, volunteers, as well as so many community partners and mentors. They are simply too many to name. In sum, the work we do is about bringing disparate elements of our community together to tell a story that has meaning and heft and can inspire others to engage in the humanities. Thank you for recognizing those efforts and for continuing to support the change.
This year's next Governor's Award goes to yet another advocate of historic preservation, Barbara Williams Jenkins. A native of Union, South Carolina, Dr. Jenkins served for many years as the Dean of Library Services at South Carolina State University. And in that role, she was instrumental in establishing the University Archives and History Collection, an invaluable resource on the founding and development of our state's only historically Black public higher education institution. Dr. Jenkins was also instrumental in creating the South Carolina State College Historic District, further augmenting that achievement through the publication of an historic campus trail brochure. Since that time, she has also worked repeatedly with the South Carolina Department of Archives and History on erecting historical markers in Orangeburg County and beyond. Her current project is coordinating a large-scale effort to record the contributions of African Americans in Orangeburg County during and after Reconstruction in the areas of business, agriculture, education, and politics. In the words of William C. Hine, a noted authority on the subject, no one has contributed more to the preservation and understanding of African American history in South Carolina than Barbara Williams Jenkins. On behalf of SC Humanities, I am pleased to congratulate Dr. Jenkins on her receipt of a 2020 Governor's Award in the Humanities.
Thank you. With deep gratitude, I accept the Governor's Award from the South Carolina Humanities Council. I would like to thank the following persons and organizations for help during the years. To South Carolina State University, former faculty, staff, administrators, alumni, and relatives of early employees for their knowledge, their assistance, and their help in giving us information in the pursuit of the history of South Carolina State University and its rich history. To the South Carolina Department of Archives and History, former and present faculty and staff, I would like to thank them for their opening the door to the preservation of African American history through the Preservation Act, now through the State Historic Preservation Office. To the South Carolina African American Heritage Commission, diligently carrying out its mission through the years, we have grown from 33 historic designations to over 500. We have really worked very hard. To the Links Incorporated, the Orangeburg chapter, for implementing the Rosenwald project for Orangeburg County. To the Orangeburg Economic and Educational and Community Organization for creating and publishing the African American Historical Tour of Orangeburg. To the Orangeburg African American Camp Committee for carrying out the mission of securing South Carolina historical markers. The camps were designated for rural youth during the days of segregation. To Williams Chapel AME Church in Orangeburg for providing facilities where we held several preservation workshops. That's to the pastor, the congregation, and most of all, to the kitchen committee. To the numerous organizations, communities, and over the state of South Carolina, who we assisted in gaining South Carolina historical markers and designations for the National Register of Historic Places. To my families by birth and marriage, and to longtime friends for the support and listening to me during these years. Their encouragement was most valuable. And most of all, to my parents, the late E.N. and Johnson Sauter Williams, for encouraging me to read. And one of the best books that I read when I was young was The Child's History of the Negro by Amy Shackelford. That was truly a winner for me. Again, thank you to the South Carolina Humanities Council for the Governor's Award.
Our fourth and final recipient is Jon Tuttle, Distinguished Professor of English, Director of University Honors, and the Nellie Cooke Sparrow Writer-in-Residence at Francis Marion University. In addition to his excellent reputation as a teacher of American drama, having amassed 35 years in the classroom, Dr. Tuttle has also been active in enhancing our general knowledge about South Carolina dramatists. In fact, he has a new book on the topic scheduled for publication in 2023. Jon Tuttle's interest in dramaturgy as both a teacher and scholar should come as no surprise, since he himself is perhaps our state's greatest living playwright. He has had 10 full-length plays produced on stage and 9 published. For 15 years, he served as playwright-in-residence at Trustis Theater in Columbia. According to Jo Angela Edwins, Poet Laureate of the PD region, Jon Tuttle is furthermore a model of selfless service to the public humanities. On the FMU campus, he has repeatedly been involved in significant public programming, including bringing to the university the moving wall version of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and hosting the highly successful 2018 Beyond Mother Emanuel Symposium, focused on the topic of racial equality in our state. In the larger community, Dr. Tuttle served on the board of the Florence Regional Arts Alliance, for whom he has frequently been a public lecturer. He was also a longtime member of the Board of Governors of the South Carolina Academy of Authors, for whom he served as corresponding secretary and local arrangements chair when the Academy held its induction ceremony in Florence in 2017. Dr. Tuttle has truly enjoyed a long career as a teacher, scholar, creative writer, and humanist. SC Humanities is pleased to award him a 2020 Governor's Award in the Humanities.
Well, I'm very thrilled and honored to have received this award. And I want to begin by invoking the words of my friend Val Littlefield, who, when she received hers, she looked at it and said it's just become her favorite wine glass. And I'm going to think about that every single time I see it from now on. And in fact, I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. I think I'll put it right on the middle of our living room rug, so that eventually people who come over will have to say, "What's this about?" And I'll get to tell them. And what I'll tell them is that I am so pleased to have my name added to a list that includes people like Tom Mack and Veronica Gerald and Val Littlefield and Charles Israel and Ron Rash and my friend Fred Carter, who is also my president at Francis Marion University. He makes everything possible for so many people. The activities I've been involved in began with my approaching him with an idea. For instance, the Mother Emanuel Symposium, or the visit by the moving wall, the Vietnam Memorial. And his first response is always, "Oh God, what's it going to cost?" And then we walk it through, we talk it through, and by the end of the hour, he says, "We'll come back in a week with a financial breakdown and some dates." And I know at that point that it's going to happen. Francis Marion University, I would call it the best kept secret in South Carolina higher education, but it's not a secret anymore. It is one of the most functional, vital, and collegial institutions of higher learning that I could imagine working at it, and it is my great honor to be a part of that faculty. And also to be connected to Trustis Theater, which has made other things very possible for me over the years. Jim and Kay Thigpen founded it in the 70s, ran it for about 30 years. When they stepped aside, Dewey Scott Wiley took over, and then Chad Henderson, and it has just become bigger and better, and a hub for artists of all kinds, not just actors and directors and theater people, but visual artists and dancers. And Chad Henderson has made it the center of the vista, and he is someone, if I have any clout now in nominating someone for the Governor's Award, I'm coming after you, Chad, and I'm coming after your mother-in-law, Cindy Boyder, who has already won the South Carolina Governor's Award in the Arts, but she is plugged into everything as founder of the Jasper Project, publisher at Muddy Ford Press, and a friend to every artist in the Midlands. And it's just been my pleasure to work with all of them. Also with the South Carolina Academy of Authors. I'm no longer on their board, but we had a great time at our induction ceremonies. For instance, the one that Fred Carter allowed me to put on in Florence. and got to meet all those wonderful authors. I hope to attend more of those again. And this thank you would not be complete without mentioning Jo Angela Edwins, who is now the Poet Laureate of the PD, and there was a person who nominated me. And she is my great friend, and she just became even greater. So Jo Angela, thank you very much. In the meantime, it's just such an honor to be able to take this home and know that I've joined Val Littlefield and the others I mentioned before holding this wine glass each night. Thank you very much. In his award-winning volume entitled Essays from the Nick of Time, novelist Mark Sloka writes that the humanities are the crucible in which our evolving notions of what it means to be fully human are put to the test. They teach us not what to do, but how to be. The recipients of this year's awards are notable exemplars in this regard. The humanities have enriched their lives, and they in turn have enriched the lives of all of those who have been privileged to know them and their work. Let me once again offer congratulations to Billy Keyserling, Robin Waits, Barbara Williams Jenkins, Jon Tuttle, and Caroline DeLongchamp for their outstanding achievements in the public humanities. To learn more about their fine work and to find out more about the many initiatives of SC Humanities, our state's program of the National Endowment for the Humanities, I encourage you to visit our website at schumanities.org. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the SC Humanities Board of Directors, made up of 20 community leaders from across the state, for their dedicated service. Thanks also to our talented and hard-working staff for their contributions to this program. Dr. Randy Akers, T.J. Wallace, Dr. Alice Taylor Colbert, Gail Lyles, and Laura McGuinn. Finally, let us all hope that in 2021 we can once again gather together in person to celebrate our next cadre of honorees. In the meantime, here's wishing you health, happiness, and a year enriched by the humanities.
Great education begins with a firm foundation. At Francis Marion University, that foundation has been the liberal arts and the humanities ever since our founding 50 years ago. These disciplines provide our students with the context necessary to understand an increasingly complex world and the critical skills required to navigate it. They produce thoughtful, well-rounded young men and women who make that world a better place, and whom we are proud to call our own.
Experience 150 years of local history right down the road at historic Columbia's Public Gardens. These unique landscapes make up 14 acres of green space in downtown Columbia. Have a picnic at the elaborate gardens of the Robert Mills House, wander through the grounds of the Hampton Preston Mansion, or visit the Outdoor Museum at the Man Simons site and see how our history is alive. Visit historiccolumbia.org to learn more.